night. As a reporter, something made him move, and thank God he did, because as I said, sometime later, a very short time later, number 7 collapsed. Vince is joining us now in Lower Manhattan. Vince, how are you tonight?
Well, about as good as anybody can be. As I mentioned to you earlier, Ernie and Dana, and I'm sure Angela, by now you know many of the people that are missing in law enforcement and the fire department are friends of mine, and that brings me to what I have to tell you. It is very sad news, and let me qualify it first by what I'm about to say. I don't want anyone to interpret that I'm devaluing in any way any of the civilians who are lost at this point. But I've been told by sources that they believe at this point, right now, they are lost and feared dead are many of the top brass of the New York City Fire Department, at least one of the top brass from the New York City Police Department, and no less than 3 of the top brass from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. That said, there are also hundreds of officers and firemen who are unaccounted for. I'm also told by sources that they are literally going from station house to station house for the fire department, doing a head count, precinct by precinct for the New York City Police Department. I'm also told that military heavy equipment will be brought in, bulldozers, cranes, things of that nature, to go in there as soon as they possibly can. And to bring us back to where we began, as you were talking about, yeah, I was there 45 minutes, and in hindsight, I guess what made me leave was when those windows began popping out, and I mean, they didn't fall, they popped out of 7 World Trade Center. In hindsight, I guess maybe that was the inclination for us to get out. But this is what we saw. Take a look. When you first saw it and walked up to it, you heard it as you were racing to it, but to see it's another thing. What's the first thing that went through your head just after initially seeing it?
I just wanted to cry, to be honest with you. It's terrible.
We are in an abandoned skyscraper, and quite frankly, I don't even know where I'm at. I see a sign outside that just gives me a reference of Barclay Street. As you can see all around here, the windows have been blown completely out. And as we take a walk towards the front of the building here, you want to take a look outside. If you have never been to war, like I have never been to war, then this is what it looks like. We don't know what that building is. We don't know where this building is, but they're obviously on fire. Maybe there's a chance that they could collapse. I've been on this earth for 37 years. I've never been to a war, but I can only imagine that this is as close as I've ever come.
It's an unbelievable sight. I've never seen something like this. And I'm 20 years on this job. This is the worst I've ever seen it before. It's unbelievable, the devastation. We got burnt cars. We have the top of the World Trade Center topple onto the street. We have we don't know how many people are missing right now. We don't have that number yet, but I'm sure that there is.
I've heard reports that there are just bodies littering the street.
Well, there's reports of people trapped inside the building, but we haven't gone. We can't go in yet until the fire's under control.
More debris falling from a nearby building, the World Trade Center. We're at West Broadway and Barclay. Very difficult to breathe here, but look around. This must have been ground zero where this thing blew up. Car after car after car, buses, completely obliterated and burned straight down to the steel. Behind me, that gaping hole, that's where one of the 2 towers stood. It's not there. And as you can see above me, the fire in this adjacent building just continues to rage. It's a surreal environment. It's almost impossible to describe, again, except to make a war correlation. Whoever said somebody declared war on us, it certainly looks like it, doesn't it?
That building I was referring to that was on fire, I didn't know at the time what it was. I learned later, and also learned just how lucky myself and my photographer Terrence were. That was 7 World Trade Center. 30 minutes after I got out of there, it collapsed. 30-some stories. I have one other note that I just want to put by. This is probably the darkest day in the history of New York City, if not the history of the United States. But if you're looking for some inspiration, just 10 minutes ago, I wasn't too far from where the Tower number 1 and Tower number 2 went down, and I saw a car completely covered with soot. And on that car, somebody wrote, "This won't stop New York." So if you're looking for inspiration, hang your hat on that. Ernie, Angela, back to you.
That is the spirit, indeed,
Yes,
that we've been
yes.
hearing about. Vince, before you go away, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. You were talking to one of New York's bravest, and they were talking about not being able to go into the buildings to be able to do their work until those fires had been under control. What's the status right now? Are they able to go in there?
No, not at this point. Still smoldering. And it's not just the fires you have to be concerned about. You have to be concerned about the structural integrity of the buildings. You know, I mean, you see the silver building over my shoulder here. 7 World Trade stood next to that. The windows there were completely blown out. We don't know what it's done to the foundation. Again, I mentioned it several hours earlier. You want to rush in and do everything you possibly can to try to bring people out. But at the same token, you don't want to send 2,000-3,000 rescuers in there to have them killed by 1 or 2 more buildings that collapse suddenly.
From the people you've been talking with tonight, what does the next 24 hours, the next 48 hours look like?
Well, the next 24 hours definitely looks like doing their best, consulting with engineers, getting any hot spots out, trying to assess the structural damage to any surrounding buildings. Once that is done, it's deemed safe to go in. They're going to go in with heavy equipment. They're going to go in there with search dogs, cadaver dogs, and they're going to go in there with hands and feet and shovels and picks, and they're going to do everything they can to bring as many people out alive as they possibly can.
Vince, one more question. You may not have any information on this, but the issue was raised earlier in the day since we've been on the air here for so many hours. What have you heard, if anything, about biological entities? There had been that issue raised earlier that perhaps anthrax and the like might have been part of this attack today. What have you heard?
Well, certainly there's a lot of concern of that around here. I haven't heard anything concrete where there is definite I won't even say speculation, definite feeling, if you will, that they believe that some sort of biological terrorism has been used. There's all kinds of speculation as to what has happened here. Was the plane loaded with explosives? Was the plane enough in and of itself to crash in the building to bring those 2 towers down? Because you'll see the video, and you've seen it 100 times. It looked like it was a controlled implosion. It didn't fall over. It looked as if somebody put TNT all throughout that building. It pancaked from floor to floor to floor.
Yes.
So, of course, there's speculation here that maybe these planes were loaded with C4 explosives or some type of explosives on timers, that if the plane itself didn't bring it down, that charges would go off and that eventually what happened would happen. But as far as biological attacks go, yes, it is a concern. How great of a concern, I don't think at this point.
We'll be learning more about that, I'm sure. A lot of questions, perhaps not the answers that we want right now, but in time, we know we will have those answers. Vince Trementry in Lower Manhattan, thank you for your report. We will get back to you.
Yes. And, of course, the hospital personnel at St. Vincent's, they were some of the first people on the scene to actually help with the injured people there. The mayor has been he's just been so happy with the way they have handled themselves and the way they got to the scene so quickly and the work they're doing. Whitney Casey is there live with more for us. Whitney.
That's right. The mayor, the governor, and the police commissioner all here today commendating the efforts of the workers here. Now, we're told that it's almost sort of the calm before the second storm. It's very quiet here behind me. It's been like that for the past 2 hours here because they say that they're doing some extensive digging and they hope to bring people back here very shortly. And they say those people may have very serious injuries. Now, joining me right now is Mark Ackerman. He's been here with me all day talking to us, keeping us informed about what's going on at the hospital. It's a lull right now, but we've seen this earlier today.
You're absolutely right. We have seen this several times. What Fidney, the fire department, has told us is that occasionally they have to drop back, stop digging because they hit hot spots or there's other problems that arise. They are currently stopped digging at the moment, we're told. My information may not be entirely up to date, but we also need to understand that, or have been led to believe, that they're going to start digging again very soon, and thus we've kept most of our staff here.
Right, about 500 doctors and nurses here.
Yeah, we've cut back just a little bit because what we are now understanding from the fire department is that they believe they will be digging for several days. So we're now going on 12-hour shifts. The Salvation Army has been gracious enough to put up 100 cots right on 14th Street in their facility, and we're sending people to get some sleep now, and we're going on 12.
A little problem with our technology down there. Of course, you can understand. Phones really have been out for most of the day. People haven't been able to use their cell phones or landlines. But nevertheless, we are communicating and getting the information that you need. Speaking of information, Dana Tyler is standing by right now with more on the schedule for tomorrow, what's going to be open, what's going to be closed. It's a long list, Dana. Bring us up to date.
Well, you mentioned the telephones, and earlier today, and it wasn't just in the New York area. It stretched from Maine south to the southeast of the country. I mean, the jam of phone lines was incredibly widespread, and so that has lessened up some, but still you did say so many people using the phones. Pay phones, we've learned, all pay phones are free in Manhattan until this emergency is over. Communication, of course, not only in talking with your loved ones, but just continuing on with life, getting things done. As we've all said throughout the day, all buildings south of Canal evacuated earlier today. Stability of the buildings still crucial. Crews wanting to know that, so obviously those people do not go to work tomorrow. All New York City public schools are closed tomorrow. Principals will be in and some supervisors talking about what curriculum they will do, because this is something our children need to talk about to learn to cope with. This is not go away when we wake up tomorrow. This is something we will all be dealing with for quite some time. Also, all Catholic schools in New York City are closed tomorrow. All Manhattan bridges are open, but outbound only. No bridge crossings in Manhattan currently. The Battery, the Lincoln and Holland tunnels, all completely closed for now. That has been the situation all day. Subway service has been restored. Trains are bypassing stations south of Canal Street. We understand that Long Island Railroad train service has returned to normal. New Jersey trains have limited service out of Manhattan. And again, payphones free for the time being. Ernie, Angela, back to you.
Thank you very much, Dana. We'll get back to you in a while.
Joining us now on the phone is Democratic Congressman Elliot Engel. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am.
Good to have you with us this evening. We also understand you're on the International Relations Committee. What happened today is certainly not going to be good for international relations with some people in parts of this world.
Well, I think today is the day that America lost our innocence. I don't think we'll ever be the same, but I think we need to regroup and rally behind the president and get to the bottom of this, find out who's responsible, and react swiftly and punish those responsible. And also, obviously, there were many lapses, and we need to find out why. And Congress is going to find out why. And I think we need to plug up the holes and the gaps that we have.
There were huge holes and gaps. I mean, aren't you surprised that something of this magnitude could happen to us?
Well, I am surprised. You know, I'm a New Yorker, born and bred. I represent the Bronx and Westchester. This is like a bad dream. I think somehow, perhaps I'll go to sleep and wake up, and it'll all be a dream. We have a lot of work to do in this country. There are obviously forces that are bent on our destruction, but I think that New Yorkers are a resilient lot, and Americans are a resilient lot, and we're not going to let it to stop us. Congress will be in session tomorrow. We're going to move ahead with government, and we're going to track these people down.
What do you expect will happen tomorrow? We listened to the president tonight, of course, reassuring Americans that strength will prevail. What do you expect will be happening in the next 24 hours?
Well, I think we'll see bringing together of everyone. You know, in times like this, in a crisis like this, politics is not important. Americans have to all bond together, and I think you'll see a coming together of the House and the Senate, Democrats and Republicans, all resolving to work together. You know, our differences are not very important. Our strengths as Americans are, and I think that we're going to have a resolution tomorrow to support the president and to track down the people responsible for this. And then I think that we have some soul searching to do, frankly, because you know, we haven't had a hijacking in the United States in about 2 decades, and suddenly for there to be 4 in one day, this was obviously very planned out, and done by a large amount of people, not just by 2 or 3 people. And of course, all fingers seem to point to Osama bin Laden. But we're going to find out who it is.
Well, a lot of people are saying we got caught with our undershorts down, and it's not.